How to protect data on a laptop. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Question I got was actually pretty simple. How can you set a strong password in a laptop so that data can't be stolen? It takes much more than a strong password. In fact, it takes at least a couple of passwords plus some settings plus some encryption on top of it all. Given that laptops are so easily lost or stolen, let's walk through the 4 steps that I recommend you use to protect the valuable data you have stored on them. Number 1, lock your UEFI. If your computer's UEFI, also known as BIOS, supports it, configure it to require a password before booting. This prevents strangers from starting your laptop, much less accessing what's on it directly. Exactly how you do this, of course, is going to vary depending on the make and the model of your computer. Not all UEFI interfaces are the same, and not all support the same set of features. Check with your computer's manufacturer for specifics. If you are able to set one, do not forget your UEFI password. So this will not only prevent someone from accessing what's on the machine, but will also prevent them from making changes to it. For example, with a UEFI password set, they should not be able to change the boot order and boot from anything other than the settings you've chosen. While you're at it, turn on Secure Boot if it's not already on. This restricts the computer from booting into untrusted operating systems or installing unauthorized UEFI replacements. Now, there is one caution. Turning Secure Boot on or off may change how your system boots and actually render the current operating system inaccessible. If that happens, just revert the change, and then the computer should return to normal. Think about setting Secure Boot prior to your next operating system installation. Number 2, lock your hard disk. This is probably the single most important step on the list. By lock your hard disk, I mean use whole disk encryption. This can take any of a few forms. Windows BitLocker, if your Windows supports it, make absolutely certain to back up the encryption key when offered. VeraCrypt, whole disk encryption. It's passphrase based, so do not lose or forget the passphrase. There is no backdoor. Or a hard disk encrypted at the hardware level. This manifests much like a UEFI password. You must specify a password prior to being able to boot from the drive. Once again, do not lose this password. Encryption is the ultimate protection for your data. Even when all else fails and a hacker or thief makes off with the hard drive from your laptop, they still won't be able to access the data on it without knowing the passphrase or the encryption key. Neither will you, should you ever lose the key or forget the passphrase, so don't. Number 3, lock your login. You should have a strong password for your computer's login, particularly if you use a Microsoft account. Unlike your local account, your Microsoft account is also accessible and therefore vulnerable online. Using additional login methods, like maybe a PIN or facial recognition, is actually something I tend to discourage for mobile computers with sensitive data. They represent additional places hackers can poke and prod. Guessing your strong password is unlikely, but a short PIN can easily be exposed in other ways. It concerns me that a good photo might squeak by facial recognition tools, so I'd avoid it as well. Long, strong passwords remain the best protection. While you're at it, make sure there are no additional login accounts enabled on your computer. If the normally hidden account called administrator is enabled, disable it, assuming, of course, your normal login account is administrator capable. Number 4, lock your laptop. When traveling, a friend of mine never leaves his laptop alone without physically locking it to something else in the room, like a table. Most laptops have a slot for what's called a Kensington lock. It's a standard designed to securely tether mobile devices in place. Even with all the precautions already taken, UEFI passwords, encrypted disks, and secured accounts, it's still important to make sure that the laptop itself can't be stolen. As I've said many times before, if it's not physically secure, it's not secure. Much of what I've just talked about came to mind when a friend handed me a laptop and asked me to see if I could make it usable again. It had been part of a corporate network that they no longer had access to, so they could not sign in. They just wanted to be able to use the laptop for themselves and didn't really care about what was on it. Any photos could be restored from copies on their mobile phone. I discovered that the hard disk had been encrypted using BitLocker. And of course, we did not have access to the corporate encryption key. The result? The data was completely inaccessible. I was able to back up the hard disk, but the encryption remained in place. I'm not sure that the backup will ever be useful other than to restore the laptop to the state it was in when I got it. On the other hand, without needing a UEFI password, I was able to easily change the boot order and boot from a Windows setup drive. This then allowed me to install Windows from scratch and erase everything on the drive, encrypted or not. Much of what I've described relies on an encryption key, passphrase, or strong password. Again, do not lose them. If you do, you will be the one locked out, and everything on your computer may be rendered inaccessible. That's the whole point of this type of security. And there are no backdoors. I mention this again and again because of a fairly constant stream of questions from folks wanting to get back into accounts or devices for which they've lost their passwords, their passphrases, or their encryption keys. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/123964. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.